Meta Perspective Podcast. Hello, and welcome back to Meta Perspective Podcasts. We're your hosts, Alex,
Evan,
and the girl. This is the show where we take different ideas and thoughts and try to get to the heart of the topic through not just our perspective, but yours.
Because Meta Perspective Podcast is not meta without your perspective. But yeah, we've been doing this podcast now for probably about 3 years. We were streaming mostly on Twitch, and we have taken it to YouTube, and now tonight, X. So if you're watching on X, you are the first viewers of the newly released Meta Perspective Podcast on X. And tonight we do have a giveaway going on. We're trying to build the YouTube following. So if you are watching this on YouTube or if you're watching this on X, it doesn't really matter. Just go to YouTube. Give us a subscribe. You can see on your screen the giveaway is a $5 Amazon gift card. If you send us a screenshot of your subscription to parodyworldproductions@gmail.com. We promise we won't spam you or send you notifications or anything like that. It's really just a way to connect with our audience and, you know, to reward you for being one of our early subscribers.
Throwing out a thank you, you know?
Yeah.
It's not easy watching hours and hours and hours of bad podcasts. That's why we give you ours, a good one, and you get paid to watch it.
And we also do have a call line if you are interested in calling. The number is on your screen, and it will be cycling throughout the show. Give us a call. Your number will be totally private. You can join in on the discussion. We've got it linked to the pod track here, so we can hear you, we can respond to you, and we can get your perspectives. And hopefully you don't just say a bunch of expletives and we have to promptly hang up on you. So.
Yeah, that'll hurt your gift card chances.
Yeah, no gift card for expletives. But
Just be nice.
For normal subscribers that want to join in on this conversation, want to be a part of this awakening process, please give us a call. Send us on the chat. We also have that pulled up, and we can respond to to your inquiries or to your additions to this beautiful perception that we call life.
I like that. It's beautifully said.
Because, again, Meta Perspective Podcast is not meta without your perspective.
That's your perspective.
But tonight's episode will be fun.
I like it. What is tonight's episode?
Tonight's episode is how we perceive reality.
Wow, it's a big one.
So, yeah. I guess I'll go ahead and start it off. We've been talking the past week or two. We actually, a lot of the thoughts that are going into this was from a Joe Rogan podcast that happened about 2 weeks ago with Terrence Howard. And if you have not seen that, I would definitely check it out. It is very interesting. If you're a science person, which I am, I found it to be almost like world shaking, eye-opening. So we're gonna probably reference some of the things
we'll
that
brush on it
from that episode. Yeah. But I mean, in reality, we're just gonna talk about perception and how that influences the individual, how that influences society, how it makes your life better or worse, depending on your perception of things. And we're going to get down to the nitty-gritty details of the universe and life on this planet, which, honestly is a special thing. We shouldn't be here. There's a bunch of atoms swirling around in the universe, and
we got lucky.
Somehow our consciousness has been sustained throughout life, and
of course, life, it all kind of comes down to your perception of it.
I mean, that's true. Like, so yeah, to start this conversation off, I mean, that's really the basis for all this. We take everything that we've been given perceptually for granted, because this is an anomaly of an experience. Everyone out there right now listening to this is going through an experience that, realistically should not be happening in a sea of randomness and, forces and all this stuff. There's nothing that says that we as human beings should be consciously perceiving life over a lifetime, for like 80 plus years or whatever. We are on this earth in a physical form, and our perception is everything. Obviously, we have senses, sight, touch, smell, taste. Those things help us interpret reality, and throughout our upbringing, we are educated by the people that came before us. Theories of gravity and the universe and astrophysics, planetary motions, things like that. They help us understand our place in the universe. And for the most part, we've accepted that, lines are lines, things are things, and to go outside of that is preposterous. The world does not revolve around the universe revolves around the earth. It doesn't revolve around the sun. That's heretical. You should be hung for that. That's what they were saying, 1,000 years ago, or whenever Copernicus, like 1,200 or something, 800 years ago. And it's as much rejected as it was then as some of these new age ideas are rejected now.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. I think one of the craziest things about perception is what was so normalized not even that long ago, now looking like some crazy, like how could you come to that conclusion with all the evidence presented? Not much has changed from then to now. A lot of the evidence is still here for us to go this way, but you chose this route. Like, that's preposterous. That's one example. Was what we were talking about earlier, a duel. It seems preposterous. Like, nowadays, you got a problem with somebody, if it comes down to it, it's like, let's do this. Put your dukes up. Like, we're going to test your strength versus my strength. We're going to fight. Hopefully, when one person's down, it looks like we're about dead, somebody will pull us off.
Yeah.
But the idea of being like, you disagree with the president of the United States? Well, we can duel. Like, hold on, you're the president. You're the leader of the free nation. You're going to go risk your life to settle an argument with some random Joe? Like, that seems preposterous.
Yeah.
Like, how can you perceive the situation as so grave? Again, like you're running a country. Or at any point of your life, like, I own a house. Like, I have a nice job. I don't hate my existence. Like, literally gambling over, using my life as a gambling chip to settle an argument. Yeah. And if I win, I've killed them. That's great.
You win
like,
the argument.
That's a weird perception. Like,
even if you're wrong.
Yeah, like there's a lot of people where it's like my perception nowadays, like with social media and everything, and weighing so many different things across each other. Obviously, everybody still has their own perception of how all of this goes. But for me, I would simply say, well, you have this understanding of this and I disagree. Now, I think I know why you have this perception. And for that reason, I don't want you to die for your stance. But I do see how it could be confrontational with mine, and how there has to be a settlement. Maybe there's a way we can communicate this. And if not, like, let's duke it out. The winner gets it. But the idea of just being like, let's just shoot each other. Like, 100% one of us will die.
Yeah.
And, like, I'm pretty confident myself, but I don't know. Your perception might be that you're confident and that I'm going to lose.
I mean, you could be right in the argument. You could be a shitty shot, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe you lose the argument in that way, and then ultimately lose your life.
It's crazy to think that people could perceive the world in such a 2D way. That's like, if I win, my idea stands and you die. And if you win, vice versa. It's like, like usually when people were settling those types of arguments, when it came down to a duel, it was usually big issues or something, that like both people were fundamentally standing on. But it's like taking a gun and putting it up to chance kind of, and like, I hope my skill's better than his.
Yeah.
Seems like a weird way for intellectual people who have already created a gun. It seems like a weird route to both mutually agree on is we both have intellectual thoughts. We both know that we're creatures of consciousness, and we both fathom different directions for this state or whatever it is. But like, I'm willing to just put it up to a gamble, like flipping a coin. No. I want one of us to fall with the coin. Let's use a gun. Yeah, sure. Like, that's it. That seems crazy to me.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that long ago.
I mean, honestly, even before that, you had like Renaissance, medieval times, people would duel and be like, I mean, like, it's kind of like Game of Thrones. It's like, oh, well, if the gods favor the winner, then, then that settles the argument, and that's what people believed. I mean, they're like, all right, I'm going to go through this duel. If God believes in me, I will prevail.
But if I perceive God correctly, couldn't I say, let's have an argument about it and a conversation, and whoever God favors more will be spoken through and articulate their reason in a better way. In other words, if we have a conversation and you come to my side, God must have favored me in that conversation. Do we really have to bring it down to like?
Well, it all comes down to perception, and that's kind of, that's what we're talking about tonight. Obviously, like.
Yeah, maybe that's how they perceived it. Is like the devil has a silver tongue, so we cannot go to conversation. We need to see who's more righteous in their decision for the direction of this state or country or world. Okay, let's just shoot at each other. The one that God doesn't want to be here will be gone. Yeah. And then the one God does want to be here will end up ruling the nations. Okay, well that sounds like something the devil came up with. Like, I just don't. It's crazy to me.
Yeah.
That very intellectual people, that was like the conclusion they came to was like, well, we just got to use guns. Like, the guy's saying some dumb shit.
Honestly, I'd like to see a list of all the U.S. presidents who have been in duels, because I know James Madison dueled, Andrew Jackson dueled. It's on the 20.
Could you imagine
he won that duel, got on the 20? That's pretty big win.
Could you imagine being that big of a person, and they're like, like if I win, nobody has to hear this idiot's ideas anymore. They're like, well, what if he wins? It's like, well, I guess I'm the idiot with the bad ideas.
Did you see that? Like, one state was like kind of legislatively trying to reinitiate the duel. Or it wasn't like to the death or something, but if it was like, I forget it was probably like Idaho or something, some insignificant state, but it was like if two congressmen or two state congressmen have a quarrel, that they could settle it literally by a fist fight. And
well, I think that is
it would
actually
be legally okay for them to do that, and they wouldn't get.
I think there are actually already states where that's legal for the common man, where it's like. I forgot the.
Oh yeah, definitely for the common man. If both people agreed to the fight, then it's okay.
I forgot what it's called, but it's like a consensual dispute or something. I forgot what it's called, but it's like where two people are like, "Hey, we're going to beat the shit out of each other," and it can be in public in some states.
Yeah.
I wish I could remember where, but in some area you can actually just like be in public, and it's like everybody's just back something like, "Hey, they agreed to it," and it's like, "Oh, okay, like this is." My son's first time at Dave & Buster's. I'm just concerned with them doing it in general.
Yeah, you got in fight.
Okay, they can do it. You can do it. Knocked over the coin machine.
All right, we're getting distracted.
Most tickets from.
So if anyone's watching out there, we're not. This is not where the conversation.
Duels are not like that's not the hill we'll die on.
It was more about the idea that, over time our perception of reality has changed. And, obviously, like, in that time, you could step on a rusty nail or something and then you would die. So it's like, it's not a lot to think that, a duel to the death would be less significant than it is, or less significant than it is now. Now it sounds like a big deal. And it's all based on the
But you would almost think that as easy as it was to die back then compared to now, in terms of like, just basic stuff. You fall, you slip off a thing and break both your legs. Well, they don't just like go and do surgery, put some plates and some screws in. Like, no,
Yeah.
you're like,
you got to amputate that leg.
yeah, like it's just cut them off.
Yeah.
So it's weird to think that like I feel like back then there was, again, this is my perception of that time, but I feel like back then life would have been a little more cherished because it was so much easier to lose. It's crazy to think that consciousness would have had that big of a jump to where we were like, oh, for the first time, we're understanding that death is a concept. Like, people understood that death was this thing for a long time, but when duels are around and you could die from like a cold,
Yeah.
it's like, you really want to put this to life, like this argument? And he's like, yeah, fuck you, dude. Like, I'm willing to kill you to get this point across.
I mean,
What if I kill you? I won't know.
No, that's
Like, either I win the argument or I don't know I lost.
Maybe-
You're like, I guess that's a good...
I mean, maybe not in
Yeah.
America, but like, that same time period, there was public executions or, sanctioned torture of individuals and stuff like that. Like, pretty fucked up past that we're working with.
Oh, yeah.
And, to
But
get
those
back
were our
to the,
leaders. Those were the
Yeah.
those were the smartest of us.
Yeah. So that's maybe survival of the fittest meant more than it does now. But, that's really what we're talking about. It's like we come from, I wouldn't say humble beginnings. We come from violent beginnings as a human race.
I blame Genghis Khan.
If you really kind of think about, the perception of man on this earth, and I started this conversation just by acknowledging what we take for granted in our perception of reality. I mean, obviously, we come from these violent beginnings. This has been thousands of years in the making, hundreds of thousands even. And humans have progressed, civilization has formed, and now we are basically in a state where our comforts and everything, they're already, you're born with accepting those things as constants. And this is not where we are, historically. This is more of like the modern age. So in a lot of ways, people have kind of overlooked all these things. Like anyone out there, look around your room right now. Look at, a piece of furniture or the ceilings or the walls or something that you bought off Amazon. Think about where those materials came from, who made them, who manufactured them, who designed the shape of them and got, paid for that. Like, there's so much that goes into our experience of reality that our perception has really become, twisted or influenced. And it's not necessarily, it's almost hard to separate our modern world from the perception of a conscious being in the universe on a planet, and it gets us maybe into all kinds of superfluous things that we worry about nowadays, like, people's preferences and, what you eat or whatever like that. Like, those things they matter to the individual, but as a collective, conscious, sustained being over your lifetime,
Those are heavier weight.
the more amazing thing is, we're fucking alive here. We're a bunch of cells and atoms, and we are sustained conscious beings throughout our lifetime. So, that perception has been kind of clouded by all this material, the material wealth of our modern age. So I mean, it's really hard to kind of get down to the fundamentals of what makes us special. Why is our perception of reality an actual piece in the unfolding of the universe and the growth of not just consciousness, but the evolving, changing nature of everything.
Including science and math and all this stuff, which kind of goes back to the podcast. And I mean, just a simple exercise, you could imagine what it would be like to grow up poor, not have anything, see other people who had stuff, become bitter, and resent anybody who actually has anything and want to take from them. You become somebody who steals, and you're willing to rob somebody. You have a knife. You're willing to kill them if they fight back. It could turn into, I'm poor. I'm willing to kill you if you fight back because I need this for my family, for food, for money. You got shoes that'll feed my family for 2 weeks if I sell them. I could sell them for half price and still I can make ends meet.
Yeah.
It's like that desperation for somebody who grew up in a rich family. Everything was given to them. Everything. The kid always had the best of everything. The kid was like, I want one of these. Hey, order one of those up immediately for my son. He wants it.
So it's like if the Wi-Fi isn't working, then it's a crisis,
Exactly. And it's top priority because you got to make sure the child is happy. The parents who can't help the child, so the child has to help the family, versus the family who only pours into the child. One grows up desperate, one grows up greedy and selfish and spoiled.
Yeah.
So it's desperation versus spoiled.
I mean, that's kind of...
Neither of those people, nobody would really argue that either of those people are the perfect ideal versions of them. You could argue maybe in their circumstances or whatever it is, but through perception, you can see, obviously I perceive both of them as not understanding their situation and finding a way to relate to others. You're robbing this person. You don't know whether or not they're poor. Well, he had money. Well, maybe he had finally just gotten money. Maybe he was in your boat. What do you do when you sell the shoes and you got money and somebody comes up and robs you thinking you're a dude who just has money on you? It's perception. You rob this guy because he has money. Now that you stole his money and somebody robs you, they might think the exact same thing, not knowing that you were poorer than them and went through worse circumstances than they did. The same as the spoiled kid who, might have everything given to him, but cannot appreciate it. So therefore just learns to just kind of hate everything and learns to just hate himself, because if this stuff around him doesn't make him happy and he has everything and wasn't taught by these parents how to truly treasure himself or have any value within himself, then that child starts to fall apart. You could argue, well, the kid who is poor, he should understand other people are going through the same thing, try to network, try to make friends, try to find a way that they could all come up together, and maybe through that you could get some money. And the other kid, maybe instead of being so selfish, take some of his stuff, and instead of bragging about everything he had to make himself feel like he was something, maybe take some of your stuff and give it to your friends that you make and spread your wealth. If your parents don't care about you and dump stuff on you, dump it onto other people. Even if it's fake, at least you can start to work on something genuine through, bringing people to you front with material. Regardless, you could always argue that one could do better than the other and vice versa. But that's the topic, and that's the idea of perception, is if you're the person who grew up poor or the person who grew up rich, you can perceive their realities through either lens, but the reality is you could also say both of those did not do it properly in those scenarios. So regardless of being the same age, the same person, the same everything, and just having parents who didn't give you anything versus parents who did give you everything, neither of those have anything to do with your drive or what you do. But what your parents did for you in those scenarios, give you everything or give you nothing, just those outcomes in themselves affect how you perceive all of reality. So that's kind of the point I want to get across with perception is, it's your perception was being formed before you even really had a decision to make.
Right. And that's kind of, that's what I'd like to get back to is that we've come so far from, truly understanding, what a conscious being and existing on this earth really is. And we're hung up with these superfluous things, these scenarios, these things in our modern world. They matter to us because, if you've known ultimate suffering, and you have somebody hands you a piece of bread, that's going to be the greatest thing. But in our modern society, we have all that. We have the means to eat. We have the means to have water. So none of these survival things are really an issue. So we're kind of left with, what do we do when we can totally sustain ourselves and sustain a society beyond our ecological means? We've gotten so far from our natural existence and our state of being on this earth that we really are we're looking out. I mean, we're not like inward or outward. We're just looking around us in our close-knit bubble for our perception. And that kind of robs us of the maybe potentially spiritual or revolutionary thoughts that might come through our head if we were in another scenario, and could fully appreciate where we are. That's been kind of stripped away. So you have a lot of people, billions of people on this planet, that no matter where they are in the social hierarchy, they are perceiving struggles and things like that relative to their own life. But in reality, all of us have it pretty well on this planet. And in a cosmic sense, it's a pretty special thing to even breathe, to even, experience the things that are presented us through our senses, the sights and the sounds and the music and the tastes and the food that we have. These things are all luxuries, and we've known nothing but luxuries our entire life and for the past however many generations. So people rarely look outside of themselves, outside of their bubble. And when you do, when you start to contemplate the cosmos and the beyond the material universe, that's when thoughts of something higher than yourself might arise. A lot of people have been blinded to that. So you do see a lack of appreciation, a lack of faith in oneself and of something higher. And all of these things are weighing on us all at once. And there's no ruler to measure our displacement from our natural selves or our natural perception of what this reality is, because we're so hung up on where we are right now and what humankind has achieved for us to live in.
I agree. I think a lot of that too is social media. I think it's kind of like I was saying with the poor person and the rich person. Now, obviously, as somebody standing in the background, I can see what would be the best scenario there. The rich person could give the poor person, the rich person could give the poor person a very small amount of money or a very small amount of food, and that would be major. That'd be huge for the person who doesn't have anything. So obviously, the answer would be some level of giving. If people have always kind of seen each other as this person is suffering, and I have enough perception to understand, like at some point I suffered. And because I see that in the other person, I know I should, because I can perceive them as being unhappy, and I've been unhappy. I see that, and I know what they want. They need food. I can give them food, not money. I'll give them legitimate crops, and with those crops, they could even grow more. I'm going to help them become sustainable. It might cost me nothing, but I have everything. So instead of not finding value in what was given to me. I'll find value in helping others with what I've been given. I think that's always kind of been understood. To recap, I think it's always been kind of understood that people who have everything to help people who have nothing is wildly significant. You know, helping a person who has trouble eating, even if it costs you almost nothing, being able to feed them for a month, which is, you know, maybe the amount of what I eat a night, you know, that is significant to them. That's helping. Obviously, that would be the answer to the scenario. The person who is spoiled and can't get outside of themselves gives and learns how good it feels to help somebody and sees the pain in somebody else that maybe they feel. Again, like you said, everybody experiences struggles and such in their own way. We're all experiencing the entire spectrum of emotions through life, but we experience them in maybe different circumstances. But if I see somebody who's hungry and hasn't eaten in a long time, and I'm spoiled and I just always have food, instead of judging them or being like they should work harder, I should acknowledge I haven't had to work. I've been given all of this. My parents paid for everything. His parents don't have anything. So I will give this family money. Or give them food. And now they can eat for the next month and not have to worry. They're overly gracious. And I can now see how grateful they are for something that to me was nothing. It was nothing. It's like giving somebody the hat you had when you have 20 other hats and it's your least favorite.
Yeah.
And they just get so excited. And you're like, I actually feel happier that I gave you that hat than I would if I kept it. And that's what it's about, because one, it teaches the spoiled person humility, which is something that they never really had to learn. And it teaches the poor person gratitude, somebody reaching out and helping them when they had nothing. So the person who's poor only goes to desperation to steal and rob and stuff because they don't believe anybody wants to help. And the person who's spoiled only believes that everybody else is poor because they don't try hard enough. But when you give a little bit of food and you see the gratitude and you see how happy somebody is and you create that bond and you understand it really is hard for them. I never really understood because I never had to. It's both sides. What it really comes down to is, like I said, social media. I think social media has taken out the reality of hardships. So we see everybody's lives through social media in the most positive light. We don't see the hardships. So everybody starts to become kind of spoiled and everybody becomes kind of desperate. Oh, everybody has everything, so I just want to take. Or everybody has everything and I don't, so I just want to hate. Either way, we're not getting a real dose of reality for what human struggle is, and as a result, we're starting to fall off when it comes to perception, we're falling off of what reality is, and we're perceiving everything in a way that essentially we're the worst off. Each individual is the worst off. I might have great photos on Instagram, but not compared to this person or vice versa. You know, it's like, it's always somebody's doing better than me.
Something to compare to.
But without seeing the actual struggles, you know, when you see some of these stories of a YouTuber and their actual life, you're like, all I saw was the Lamborghinis and this and that and all this stuff. I didn't know that this person went bankrupt multiple times. Their family disowned them. Their wife left them and took the kids. And this person just kept going. Suddenly it goes from I'm jealous of this person to I feel bad and you're kind of stupid. What are you doing? You know, it's how you perceive reality now, I feel is not the way. I feel like it's not proper, and it doesn't allow us to see things as they are. While we can understand that this person, you know, through YouTube and all this, these people are poor. Wow, it brought me to tears watching somebody give to that person, you know, or this person's rich as heck, and, you know, Mr. Beast is doing something crazy and giving somebody a Lambo to sleep in a tent for 3 weeks. What it all comes down to is, what is your perception of humanity? When it comes to the spiritual aspect, which I feel like has been underlying throughout all human history, I feel like the biggest factor of that spiritual aspect to how you perceive one another, you know, along with yourself, I feel like one of the biggest things to that is being giving, being grateful. These things you don't really get without true experience, and social media is kind of stunted the newer generations of really understanding what it means to be spoiled and what it means to be desperate.
Yeah.
And now you see all these desperate people hopping out, being proud of their desperation, and spoiled people being proud that they're spoiled. I have nothing to offer anything, but I'm still so cocky.
So yeah,
which makes you want to take them down,
let's
man. Ugh.
I,
Go on. I'm sorry. It's
I
just-
know. I mean, yeah,
it does.
Let's wipe away all that, because I mean, you're right. It's like, you know, you see somebody who's successful and stuff like that, like your perception of them compared to your own life. That's a psychological, you know, scale that you weigh, and you judge your own self based on what you have to compare to. And that's, you know, we've talked about the ego and the show, and like that's that all weighs in. But if you strip all that down, even if you strip down, you know, people that were living 100 years ago or 1,000 years ago or 10,000 years ago, you know, like on this material plane that we consider reality, I mean, we really are just a collection of atoms that have formed cells and organs, and, you know, nature and chemistry and biology. They have worked out a way for us to maintain a sustained consciousness over a lifetime. And the human body is really just a chemical reaction. It starts and it you know, you need to eat, you need air, you need to sustain the reaction, but ultimately it's wanting to move towards equilibrium, which is total dissolution, total death. So your entire life is really just this one sustained reaction. And over that life, the majority of your cells in your body, they will regenerate. They will die, come back again. You know, you might lose an arm, you know, like you could, anything could happen, but the fact remains that your mind and your consciousness sustained in this reality exists separate from the material world. And I mean material world by literally the physical cells in your body are recycled. So you are not who you were as a child, because obviously we grow up and we're small. We're you know, we grow and our cells expand and they die, and but you remember stuff from when you were a child. So there's something else. There's something else beyond the material reality that sustains this conscious experience.
Yeah, I'm not in the same body in any type of way, from cellularly, and every aspect of physically. I am in a different body than I was when I was a child, but I still have the exact same memories. So the memories, clearly, like what you're gearing up to, is this the memories are not a physical thing, but follow me throughout time.
Yeah, and
so while everything else dies, the memories, for whatever reason, are something that are constantly remembered.
And that's the thing too. It's like the past doesn't actually physically exist. Your memory of the past is at one point was a stored electrical path in your brain. So when you recall memories, when you think of the past, you are actually accessing stored information that your brain and your body set for you to recall that. So everyone's perception of the past is a lie. You know, two people can have the same experience and perceive it differently, and that will affect them differently throughout their whole life. That could influence everything about that person from that one moment.
The poor kid who was never given money, and the poor kid whose family was given money.
Exactly.
You know, that kid has just that one thing that neither of the parents provided for either child.
Yeah.
Same circumstance, same family. Maybe they were twins, but one kid was given food by somebody and the other was denied.
Yeah.
So one becomes desperate and says, then I'm going to take it. And the other says, you know what? There's good people out there. I need to become good to earn others' respect because I didn't do anything. And this person was gracious enough to help me.
Yeah.
So I need to become worthy of it, while the other person isn't great. It isn't deserving of the food, gets denied, and says it's your fault. I mean, how you perceive things, it really is just down to the exact moment and what led to it. So
Right.
both people could like you said, experience the same thing, but what led up to it could be different,
Yeah.
and vice versa. I mean, it's literally every aspect determines your perception. So your perception is probably one of the most fickle things of the mind.
Right. And even if you strip that down further, like we have our own internal perception of this reality and of others. And we also have a perception of ourselves. What our self and our ego, who am I? What do I do? What do I like? Those kinds of thoughts, they happen in the moment. And you're having to, from a brain infrastructure standpoint, you're having to think of all the past experiences that you've stored and accumulate a brain interpreted perception of who you are, and you decide, oh, well, I'm not the type of person that does that, or I am the type of person that likes that. And you kind of like build that in your head, and it influences your future actions. And that's really what it comes down to. Is it, as a sustained consciousness, we base our future thoughts and reactions off of our past. So it's the things we've learned, it's experiences we've had, it's, people that came before us, like Isaac Newton developed a whole system of gravity and stuff like that. We all base that off, we base new scientific discoveries off of that understanding. But we didn't have to prove gravity. We didn't spend a lifetime trying that. We can just read it, take it in, understand it, and then go further. So it's not that, we are Isaac Newton and we thought of this stuff, but we can understand it. We can pick it up and we can roll forward. And that's always the situation at any given moment in, the quantum reality that we're living in now. It's all about the current moment right now. Past is a perception. Future is a perception. So, as a collective society, how we view our past and how we view our future does influence people in the moment. So like the scenarios we're painting out, whether you're rich or poor, stuff like that. It doesn't matter if you're rich or poor and you're standing in a room with nothing else and two people interacting with an object. All of those things become irrelevant when you strip away all the things that aren't fundamental. So
you walk into a
and
room.
that's kind of comes back to the point we started with, is that so much of our world is superfluous. It's not actually assisting our consciousness in moving forward or anything. It's just defining our reality, our perception of it, and everything is relative to that. Well, like we talked about in the beginning, it's like you could be in the Spanish Inquisition. You could be tortured if you were a heretic. That is, or you could be in a duel with somebody if you disagree. Those things seem hardcore to us now, but they weren't as hardcore then as they are now. They're just relatively how you settle an argument or how you, make sense of information that you're given. Because none of this stuff, like the only thing that we really truly know is inside of us, is happening and unfolding in the present moment. And we like to think that we have a past and an identity and all that, but that's all in our heads. So it all comes down to how we use whatever's going on that creates a sustained consciousness, how we use that now and moving forward is the most important thing. Because looking backwards, it helps, but it doesn't actually accomplish anything. It doesn't change.
Yeah.
Looking backwards doesn't help now unless it's actually learning from something in the past.
And that's why I'll always argue that the number one thing the mind should be focused on is the mind, psychology, watching your thoughts.
Looking in a mirror.
Because you can be in this situation, then 5 years later be in a similar situation and try to ask yourself, with what I know, how would I handle this? Well, it's your perception. How I would handle this, well, it's a little different because now the situation is like this versus then. Okay, so you're in a different situation. So how you handle this, you can take some of what you experienced in the last one, in the last similar experience, but because this is a little bit different, it's totally off. Like I have to do things in a different way. While if you analyze your thoughts, watch how you think over time, and you make that the focus, indisputable, this is what I go for, is how do I view every situation as it comes in this present moment? Only then will you notice, well, I remember I was thinking and feeling this way when this happened. Well, the big difference between that situation and the one I'm in now is, well, this one is a little more emotional. Now I'm able to put a label on what the difference of this situation versus that one is. Well, this one's a little more emotional. Well, I also understand from every situation, focusing on my thoughts, that when I get more emotional, my thoughts get quieter, which means I'm not as good at decision making. So I may act out more, I may act with more emotion, or I may just, in a board game, just flip the board and be like, no, and just freak out and be like, you don't accept my side, I don't accept yours. You'll never truly evolve until you analyze your thoughts and see why you react certain ways and how to justify. So you could say, well, in this situation, I was justified. In this situation, I have to find a justification or a way to react that I can justify.
But
the reality is, though, is if I analyze my thoughts and I see how I act in this situation, it's very similar to the last one. Well, I can take everything from the last one and apply it to this. I don't have to react based on my current moment because I'm not taking in this. In other words, your perception a lot of times is when you go into a present moment, in the now, in the present moment. Here I am right now. I'm going to take what I learned from last time I was in a similar moment and bring that here. Instead, if you're always analyzing your thoughts and you put psychology first, and every situation is on the same meter. I'm in this moment. How are my thoughts? How am I perceiving myself? Let me watch myself and how that person said this and I just reacted. Let me immediately acknowledge how I'm reacting. And as you do that over time, when the next situation comes, it could be similar but different. But the reality is I'm going to take everything I've learned from everything, and when the moment happens, I don't go, my brain doesn't perceive this moment and draw it to my thoughts of saying, this is like the last time I was in this situation. I'm treating the situation as a new moment. I'm not linking it to the last time I was here. I'm linking it to, this is a new moment. This is a new situation. This is not comparable to anything from my past. But I can take all of my understanding from my past, because I've been watching myself, and apply it to this moment. It's not about what the person's saying that's kicking me off. Now, because I've been watching, I've been understanding, that has also helped me understand other people. So instead of me just reacting to everybody all the time and trying to figure out and draw clues to how I'm reacting and why I'm reacting, doing all of this by watching my own thoughts and seeing how people react to my own thoughts and how I react off of theirs, I've started to understand, well, maybe it's their fault. And let me just finish this. In the sense that, like, maybe this person, maybe something happened to this poor guy. Instead of the guy who's poor trying to rob me for money and me pulling out a gun and shooting him, now let me take this moment. Maybe I was robbed before, but that has nothing to do with the focus of my mind. If my mind is focused on my mind, then this moment has nothing to do with the last one, because you're a different person. I have a different amount of money on me. I'm in a different place. A simple mind would just draw conclusion to conclusion. I was robbed before. What did I do then? What did I tell myself I would do now? That's not proper, in my opinion. What would be proper is, I now understand people better. I see this person better. So instead of me reacting and trying to stop them from doing it, let me ask why they're doing it. Before you know it, you might actually open this person up and they're like this and that. You're like, I want to help you. They're like, what? I just told you I was going to kill you and you want to help me? You're like, hey, I'm not worried about what just happened. I'm worried about where we're going. You want to be happy, right? And they're like, yeah, let me help you get there. Forget everything. I got this money on me, but instead of you robbing me for it, I'm going to give it to you. But let me show you how. And then you go somewhere, you buy the right turnips and whatnot. You go to the right area at their house. You show them, this is how the sun hits. I'm taking everything I've learned.
Go to Chinatown, buy the special ginseng in this touring.
but yeah, I mean, it's like you teach them how to fish. You don't just let the guy take the fish from you. You teach him how to do it in a way where all logic would say, last time this person robbed me, they took my money and I got stabbed and it took a while to recover. Now I'm getting robbed again. I have a gun. I'm going to shoot them. So I don't repeat that process. The reality is you're only repeating the process of getting robbed simply because you're unsafe with yourself. But if a situation comes up again, if you're evolving as an actual person, an actual human who doesn't put themselves in harm's way, but harm's way finds you, it's your job, I believe, to dissolve that in a way that makes that person want to help the way that you focus on helping others. It's a broader perspective, a broader perception of reality. And I feel like it, just like anything else in science, I feel like that's part of what that podcast was saying, as far as we're looking at science and math two-dimensionally, when you look at three-dimensionally, it goes in all these different directions. And when you realize that and you apply that to yourself and how you watch your own thoughts, suddenly the weight of how you view things affects people. The way you word stuff just comes out different. And that person who normally would have just stabbed a dude for being like, I just want to help you. Fuck you. Bah. I'm getting that money. The way you look at them, the way you communicate, they're like, no. He sees through me. Like, is this an alien? Like, this guy understands me and I don't feel like he's ever understood me. Like, this guy's never gone through anything I've gone through, but I feel like he gets it because he's analyzed the situations, watched things, and instead of just reacting to his perception, he is the perception.
What's interesting too about everything, like the entire conversation so far. I'm just realizing this. It's all in the context of perception in other people. And I'm not trying, like,
no, I agree. That's the biggest factor. If you can draw the parallels in other people, that in itself will grow your perception infinitely.
Right. But even in the context of thinking about the self, it's always in context of other people, and our perception of reality. In a way, we're basing it off of other people and how we are perceived, how we believe that we are perceived by others. And, I'd like to open up the discussion to, kind of how we perceive ourselves, in the physical universe. If we took away society, if we took away everything, if we tried to look at the things that human beings have perceived about reality since the Neanderthals or whatever, throughout the last 60,000 years and further. If you were just left alone on this earth, what would you base your perception off of? It wouldn't be other people. It would be like nature, things like that. I mean,
And that's what it
in a
used to
way,
be. Look at the Indians and stuff like that. Use every part of the animal because you don't want to waste any part of it. Where would you learn that? If you're like a group and you're like, hey, we killed an animal and we're eating it. That's kind of the perception now. You go to a supermarket, you get a slab of beef. You're like, I don't know or care what happened to the rest of that animal. I just came here to get the meat. But back then, an entire tribe would all have the same understanding, maybe not the same perception, but the same understanding of when we kill this, we use all of it.
Yeah.
Why? How could you come to the conclusion that you need to use every part, that every part could help you, that you don't want any part of it to go to waste for its sacrifice? They saw that animal as being sacrificed for them. And they understood that for that sacrifice, they needed to respect that sacrifice by utilizing every aspect of it so that animal could help in as many possible ways as it could from its death.
See,
so maybe you died, but you fertilized an entire forest, essentially, is the idea.
yeah.
But we don't have that now, which is what blows my
Exactly.
mind. Like you're saying, when you're absent of social media and society, and you're focused on just you and your family, and that's it. You don't have all these other things. It's you and nature, and that's it. I feel like perception back in the day, that's why things were more spiritual back then, because people were not just more connected to the earth, but people only had the earth to compare from. I see how all of nature reacts with itself, and I need to react with nature.
Yeah.
It was very coexistent
And
versus how things are now.
And I mean, that is kind of, that's kind of what I'm getting to is it's like, maybe a tribe or something like that, where it's like, any outside influence is, irrelevant. You're basically focused on, your place in nature, your place in a, small hunter-gatherer society. I mean, that situation opens up the door for, a spiritual mentality that is, what is the purpose of that? And what is the purpose of me or us or and if you take away the us part, it's more about what am I perceiving? Because, our senses are very defined. They're very in tune with our ecological purpose. So, human beings are great at recognizing spatial information. We remember where we've been. We remember what something looks like, poisonous plants, animals, things like that. We can remember those things, where water is, navigate back to the water. Those things are ingrained in us. But outside of that, it's like, what's our place in the ecological world? Now we've come very far from that. So those same concerns that we would have back then is like, how do we feed ourselves? How do we find water? Those are all stripped away. So our
like you said, now it's more of what should I call this person by their pronouns? What just makes a person happy outside of myself, without any understanding of
right.
why
we're all trying to, like, quote unquote, be happy in this artificial, simulation of reality that we've built based on technology and society and things like that. So
yeah, back then we
there's no
understood
way-
that happiness was, I went out, I risked my life, I took down this giant boar, and I was able to feed the whole village.
Yeah, happiness is being able to eat and drink.
It's
and
succeeding
live till
in
tomorrow.
It's succeeding in doing something, and now obviously you wouldn't have that feeling if you went out and killed a boar, because you'd be like, there's literally like processing plants that make wild boar steaks.
Or you like post a bunch of pictures on Facebook or something.
Yeah,
That's like what you do now.
Yeah, there's no I killed a wild boar and I put my life on the line. No, it's I shot this thing from 150 meters away, and everybody's like, "That's impressive." When back in the day, it was I killed this thing with a knife I made,
Yeah.
and it was stronger than me.
Yeah.
And you're like, but 150 meters with like really strong winds, that's impressive. You're like, well, that's also impressive, but that's not in the same like risk factor kind of way.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the biggest things is back in the day when people did something, they understood there was risk. So like if I'm going to get food for my family, there's going to be risk.
Yeah.
If I'm not just out picking berries and stuff, like I'm hunting an animal.
Success means survival. Failure means death.
Yeah. And that's what it was. So when you were successful, you were happy. I didn't just do something that I didn't think I could do. I took down a boar that was clearly stronger than me and had much more veracity. Like this thing was like ready to tear me apart.
Yeah.
But not only did I take down something that should have killed me, and I succeeded, which makes me feel like amazing. But on top of that, I'm able to help so many people by what I did. I mean, where else can you get that nowadays?
Yeah.
You know, it would be, I went to school for 6 years and I paid off all my debt through figuring out the system and how it worked. And I was able to pay it off within the first 3.5 years. And then from there, I was able to jump up and really expedite my positions to get to the top to make my 250K a year. And then with that money, I put I donate 20% of all my income to this charity. It's like, that's great. But there's no way you feel the satisfaction of killing an animal, risking your life to kill something so you could feed an entire village off of your own hands. Guys, I did this. And people surround you and like, you did this? How? And you're like, it came at me, this and that. I went for his throat. He bit my arm and I just dug in and I got him. And they're like, oh my God, like, we're so happy you're alive. We're grateful that you survived. We are so, and when you get the, I helped feed everybody. I got the love of the love that I still exist. I get to see everybody grateful that I'm alive while feeding all these people. And I feel amazing because I risked my life doing something I didn't think I could do, but told myself I could and did. Where can you get that level? Something that was literally kind of a day-to-day realistic possible risk, back in the times versus now when everything's so given to us. Where can you get that same satisfaction where you can do one thing? And please in the comments, throw out some examples, but where can you make one move where people are so happy you made it through that move? That move helped all those people and you grew as a person by making that move.
Yeah.
The trifecta, that is human existence. What I did gave me value, helped others, and showed that by me doing this, people value my existence. Where can you get that anywhere in modern day society?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what we're kind of getting to is that,
Our
perception of reality is based off of other people. It's not based on reality itself. I mean, reality itself, is
if other people are gone, your perception of reality goes hog wild.
Right. Yeah, people go crazy.
Yeah.
And it's the fact. It's a simple fact that we've built so much up under us that, even history and even like society, things like that. We all base our perception off of that. So, there's people rarely will contemplate the origins of their existence or, what things outside of our bubble that we've created mean. And that's kind of robbed us from maybe a spiritual side that, you're seeing manifest now in our modern society. Like, back in the day when things, not even back in the day, like far, but like, the last 2,000 or 3,000 years, there was a lot of violence and things in the world, but
The strong survive kind of thing. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, people were able to find some solace in the spiritual aspect, but without that, we'd be a bunch of animals. So there's something that has been guiding us towards a higher resolution, but it's not really. We're not leaning into that now. We're kind of devolving from that, and we're basically left with a material world where perception of other people is everything to you, to your own physical, self-perception. And a lot of people are basically lost in a balancing act between their human instincts and where we come from and the modern society and what we've kind of built to perceive our reality. And no one really appreciates, maybe the idea of contemplating where we came from, or what does it all mean, or what does it mean to see, what does it mean to hear and be a part of the conscious experience. Those things are boring compared to the everything that we've built. All of these things that like other people are doing this, and you see that and you're like, oh, I want to do that, and it's all clouding.
No, that's a really good point. That's a really good point. I think I never really thought about that, but I think when it comes to what is it to see, what are my senses? When you're left with almost nothing, those are obvious questions to ask. But when you're given things outside of your comprehension, those questions seem stupid.
Yeah.
What is it to see? They're like, are you talking about 3D? You talking about
you turn the
vision?
lights on and you fucking see.
Yeah, like we have which way to see? You're like, no, just seeing. They're like, you turn the lights on. Yeah, it's like there's so many realms of sight now that we can understand, that everything's poured onto us so much. It's like we're able to understand how all these different animals can see. This one's ultraviolet, this one's this one's sonar, this one's blah blah blah.
Yeah,
there's
infrared.
There's infrared. Yeah, there's so many different ways that we understand things can see. It mucks up the question of you yourself being able to see when you ask a question and it's in a chat room on an iPad and everybody's like, I don't know. The same way that you figured out how to hit the keys to type that, you can see the things have gotten so crazy with technology that the basic questions like that seem dumb to ask.
And what I'm getting to is it's hard to appreciate where we are. It's really hard to appreciate
Even what we are.
Yeah, what we are. Yeah. I
mean, where we are is astounding, but what we are, the fact that we are where we are as what we are is mind-blowing. We literally could be creatures, just each one of us an individual Genghis Khan, where we're just like, hey, I say Genghis Khan. I keep getting the Pokemon confused. But it's this
it's like a
but it's the same
translation
it's the same idea though.
Genghis Khan.
It's the same idea though. It's like any one of us could just follow only our passions and our deep desires, good or bad. But like we've all kind of accepted that we need to not just do that because that could have bad consequences.
Yeah.
We don't, but the problem is we don't ask the question why. We've all grown up in this society and said, it's bad for me to go and steal. But I never asked myself why. What is wrong with doing that? How does it affect other people? What is the ripple effect of that from my action? And how does that action affect me in the long run by doing it? People don't ask that question. And I feel like that's where you have school shooters and stuff like that, and these abnormal situations where it's like people never actually got to settle into themselves and see anything outside of themselves. They were born in a body and they're like, here's all this stuff, take this, take that. Especially these kids, here's an iPad, and they're like, okay, I'll just watch this. And they hardly have any time from being born to really stop and ask, what am I? Kind of like in that podcast that we're kind of repping here, is he told Joe Rogan that he remembered 6 months into his birth. And he was like, he became conscious in the womb. Now, most people would say that's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. But it does also make sense that you could have this greater understanding of what life is meant to be as you're being created as life.
Yeah.
And then society just beats you down and says, no, like, you don't get how this works. And you're like, okay, throw everything that I knew out the door because I'm a baby. I'm dumb. Throw that out the door. This is the structure I'm going to follow. And that's why a lot of people do have to use religion or something like that to come back to themselves and remember, oh, like I remember as a child, I felt this way. Why did I ever give that up?
Yeah.
Why did I give up this just childlike wonder to everything? I look at everything as so black and white, but when you kind of separate yourself from everything and you really get in tune, go outside and touch grass, and you walk up and you see a bee fly up to a flower, and you get close and you watch that bee pollinate the flower, and you watch his wrists and his legs rubbing together, and you can see the pollen building like biceps on this sucker. And you see these big balls of pollen on every leg. And as you watch it actually happening, it gives you a different perception of reality, because it's not just bees may do flowers. When you watch the process, you realize a deeper aspect.
Let me do something with you here. La Nina, can you go to the overall screen of the podcast? Here you go.
Pow.
All right, so this is my beer. This is my can. I didn't make this can. Somebody else made it. It was imported from Mexico, I suppose. I have this can. This material object. Squeeze it. Crush it. I know now that you have influenced this material object, and it has influenced my life from this point. I maybe can't drink out of it as well.
You made me do it.
But
I'm just kidding.
the point I'm making is we all influence, like, every conscious being, whether you're an ant or an auntie, it is actually influences this material world. We all have a place that...
Do mine now. No, I have to use the restroom.
Yeah.
Thanks. No. All you had to do was squeeze it. Now I gotta pee.
Am I
really
real? Are
influenced
we
that
all
one,
real?
buddy.
But everyone in this world has an influence on the material world, which is interesting when you think about all of the influences around you, and everybody is doing this at one time, and it seems very normal to us. I mean, it's just the idea of society or a tribe or other people in your life, other conscious beings. But we don't necessarily know that those other conscious beings exist. And if you get down to it on an internal level, they actually don't. They don't exist to you. You don't control them. You don't know what they're thinking. It could be all technically a fabrication of your reality, the reality you're influenced by. But the fact that you can hand someone else a can and they can crush it, and then you can verify that it has been crushed, it means that we're all working with the same physical materials. And in a way, I feel like that connects us all. It connects us all to the central idea that a conscious existence in this material world, and I'm not talking about material world in the aspect of cans and clothes and material things that we enjoy and we seek. I mean, more material as in like the atoms and the structures and the things that are actually physically existing as matter. You know, we can both interact with something, and I don't know that you exist consciously. You don't know that I exist, but we can both influence the same thing. We can both be like, oh, well, yeah, that has been influenced by you, has been influenced by me. We can both agree that both of us are influencing this material universe. And that's a very special thing to me. And it kind of, you know, like we've been talking this whole show about how we're kind of locked up in this understanding of society and reality, and then this influences our perception of it and influences our future thoughts and actions. But when you really boil it down, it's a very special thing that we can influence the material things of this world. And it kind of comes back to the cliche saying that if a tree falls in the woods and no one's around to hear it, doesn't make a sound. I mean, yeah, like theoretically, yeah, it makes a sound. But if no one's there to perceive it, then did the sound do anything? I mean, like in that example, it's kind of bullshit because the ants would hear it, the fucking birds would hear it.
I was like some animal would.
Somebody's gonna hear it. But
going off of what you're saying, going off what you're saying, I 100% agree. I think probably one of the biggest overlooked things in existence, in human existence, is the other human. It is because, again, if all I had was my perception and I was alone on this planet, then I probably would not have evolved to be the greatest thing. I would just do whatever I wanted to do to pass the time. There is a beauty in another human understanding. There's a science, there's a math, there's an overarching code to humanity that is shown in those moments where one human can say, I don't think I should do this, with not much to base off of that, but a gut feeling. I don't feel like this is good. And for another human to say, I agree. And then talk about the fact that neither of them know why, but both of them know deep down it's not good. To me, that is the fundamental of creating reality. For humans, is to say, we don't know why this is wrong, but underlying, we know it is. Obviously religion will say that that's God, however you want to perceive it. Regardless, to me, one of the most beautiful things is two humans agreeing on something that neither necessarily has proof on. Because every human knows, like, conquering a country and being able to do whatever you want would be fun. Thinking that you're a god would be fun. And if you want to argue with me and say, no, you're a bad person for thinking that people would agree with you, okay, play GTA. That's not how it works. Yeah. You give people infinite lives and a Ferrari and a machine gun, and they do not go after the bad guys. They all go after each other. Yeah. Why is society not like this? And that's the beauty, is because people come together and say, even though I would want to do this, it happening to me is so much worse than me actually wanting to do it, that I'm actually on the side of it not happening at all. And enough people can get together and agree, we don't want this to happen at all. And that is the beauty, because again, like you said, without that other person, without that other thought, that other person's perception of reality, without that, that's what we would do.
Yeah. And I actually let me explain a spiritual experience that I had. This essentially what I boiled down interactions and relationships to is perceiving every relationship, every interaction with anyone else other than yourself. And I'm talking about like an actual connection, looking at their eyes, feeling that they are there. Understand, like, obviously,
You felt that, yeah. Just
yeah,
the eyes.
we all,
Just the eyes.
yeah, we all have that. It's like we all have mothers, we all have families.
Mm-hmm.
We came from somewhere. We have connections to other people. I thought at one point, and this was like revolutionary in my head, it was every relationship that you have, every person that you know, every person that you talk to, even if you don't know them.
Started at that point.
No, that the idea is that it's all a relationship or an interaction with one being, one object. Doesn't matter who it is, doesn't matter what it is. If you're talking to somebody, you're talking to a consciousness outside of yourself. And if you accept the idea that we are all part of a universal consciousness, then that person is also a part of the universal consciousness, which means the person that you're talking to is essentially you, or a consciousness outside of yourself.
We're unraveling God tonight.
So maybe I got to the conclusion that I know it's a consciousness. I know that they can influence the material world to my perspective. But who's to say that every interaction with every other consciousness out there is not just your perception of one entity or one consciousness interacting with you? So
I mean,
basically what it came down to was that every interaction, every relationship, everything in your life, you cannot prove the other person exists. They cannot prove that you exist. But we know that each other exists, and essentially it's all the same interaction. Doesn't matter who it is in perceived from my eyes, from my material world, because I'm not going to perceive it the same way as someone else is going to. So every single reaction or interaction that you have with someone else, you're almost looking at a mirror, but it's not you, it's somebody else.
It's another perspective, another experience reacting to you based on you. And
but
I
not
would even
necessarily reacting based on you. It's
no, it is because
it's something outside of you. It's,
but I
it's
would
the
even
other
argue,
mover. It's
but I would even
force.
argue that through your existence, like I said, I think the number one thing a person can do is focus on their thoughts, focus on their mind, watch how they react to every situation. This situation is similar to this situation, but they're a little off. And that's how most people operate. Is this reminds me of the last situation I was in, so I'll react similar. Instead of I look at everything I go through as an experience, and I watch how I react to every experience. So in that mindset, this situation I can acknowledge firsthand right off the bat. This reminds me of the last time. But now all I see are the differences as to how it's not that. Because I understand all these other things I've gone through throughout my life, and I'm going to handle this situation 10 times different than I handled the last one, because I notice all the different factors.
And I think
and over time doing that, and again, I believe back in the day that's more how things were, was people didn't look at like, oh, this is a similar situation to the last one, because back then everything was kind of new. Everything was always changing in the sense of as you grew, you didn't have the social media, the computers, the things that distract you. All you had was reality. So the only thing that you had to distract you from you was the tribe, who did nothing but really try to reposition you back to you. You could sit there and like, I don't like this, and it's, well, the tree always blows when the wind. The tree always moves when the wind blows the hardest but doesn't fall. And it's like there's people always try to redirect you. So basically what I'm saying off of what you said was that I think from human existence, even dumbed down the way we are now, there is still an underlying consciousness that puts all of this stuff together, whether we choose to do it or not, there is an aspect of that happening naturally.
Yeah.
And I think even the dumbest person who doesn't pick up off of anything over time almost readies himself for that conversation to come.
Well,
so when you go to somebody and you say things, it's not just this person reacting off of what you said. It's you evolved to a point to say what you said in a way that nobody else has said it to this person. So this person may have had this conversation 1,000 times, but you, as an individual, have gone through different things. Your perception of reality is different.
Yeah.
So when you bring up the same thing they brought up, you just bring it up a little bit different, or at least your tone is different for how you want to express it, because you're not looking at it as anger of being like, this is the problem with society. You're looking at it as sorrow and optimism. You're like, this is the problem with society.
See,
and the way you sell it, the way you say it, your body language, your tone of voice, all of that stuff, all influences that person's perception and how they respond.
See, kind of what I was getting to with that, the actual spiritual side of it, was that I realized that it doesn't matter what relationship it is, what person it is that you're talking to. Every conscious being wants to find the solace in the idea that there's someone else, something else out there that is sharing your experience. Like, essentially, we're all alone. We're all individually alone, and if there was no one else around, no society to guide us, then we would be contemplating the universe and our place in it, our existence. And we might be more natural than we are. But if you just put yourself into any conscious being, you realize that every interaction with every other conscious being is essentially the same reaction, because you all come from the same place. And what everyone's trying to do on this earth is relate. It is to know that you're not alone sitting by the fire, that you're not the only one out there. There is something larger than you that you can be a part of. And I think that kind of adds into the tribe whole idea. I mean, that could even go back to like the stoned ape theory of like, individual hominids like taking mushrooms that they find in the field and like organizing together and a sense of community and reality and shared experience. And I think that's what it comes down to is we all want to share an experience. We all want to feel like we exist by being observed. And we strive to observe others because that helps us feel like we actually exist.
And that's why I was saying the most beautiful thing about humanity is the other person, because it's the only thing that keeps you within some type of parameters.
Yeah.
Without that, it's just you, your decisions. I work for me. With other people, there is this kind of God aspect of, for some reason, I feel like I care about how you view my decisions. If I decide to kill this person, and then there's another person, I got to kill that person. Why? Because a part of me understands that person doesn't like what I did, and I've already alienated myself from them, so I have to kill them. Versus, like, realistically, versus an aspect of coming together. If that person didn't kill that person but came together with that person, suddenly that person is going to dedicate their life to do more, to show that person that they can motivate them to do what they can do. And when they do something very creative and awesome and they build a hut and they're like, I have built a home for us, then that person goes, okay, well, I have built us a way to catch fish. And that other person goes, I have built us a way to make fire.
Yeah, and then society evolves from there.
And it just, because it is a back and forth and of like,
that's the foundation.
That's the foundation of humanity. And we've lost it because it's this whole thing.
We lost touch with the guy that you're doing something for. Exactly. We're all doing something for ourselves now. And it's not a collective society.
And that's the biggest thing when you look at most religions, Obviously, especially Christianity, when you look at the religion, what does it say?
Sacrifice yourself for someone else.
Sacrifice yourself. I mean, one of the biggest quotes is Jesus saying, if you hold on to your life, you will surely lose it. But if you give up your life in my sake, you will have eternal life.
Yeah.
The idea being that I can just do everything for me. And regardless of my perception, it will end in utter turmoil. It doesn't matter how I view everything. This is how mathematically it will end.
Yeah.
I can say I do everything for me. I'm a king. I've always had everything I've ever wanted. How do you feel about yourself? Well, I feel like I don't know. I shouldn't just rule this whole country. I should rule the world. There's always going to be something more.
Right.
Versus the person who gives. The person who gives, who says, this person's hungry, I want to share. Then all of a sudden that person who's now nourished feels like they need to do something back.
Yeah.
And they're going to push themselves to create either something that's equal to what I've done, or they're going to do something to show their gratitude. And that in itself motivates me to want to do more.
Yeah,
and humans push each other.
Even if you look at it from a strictly non-spiritual, just material perspective, if you sacrifice yourself for somebody, or you do something outside of your own interests for someone else, like in the context of Jesus, whether Jesus is the Messiah or whether God and any of that exist, you take that out of it, he still influenced people from the sacrifice. So the sacrifice itself accomplished a goal.
Yeah.
That can be seen as spiritual, but if you take the spiritual aspect out of it, it still accomplished a goal. It still defines how humans should behave, and in a story that has lasted throughout time, of somebody who is selfless, somebody who is good, doing for others, and not considering themselves. And that is powerful enough to where it actually influences other people. And we've seen what that happened. Like, Christianity literally evolved from Jesus, because he was he was a Jew, and he didn't say start this other Christianity religion. It kind of evolved over his actions, and that is the powerful thing, is when you act outside of yourself for other people, other conscious beings, or the one universal consciousness outside of yourself. Something happens there, whether it gives back to you now or later or never. You have influenced the material world, and not only influence it as in crushing a can, but now your children's children will crush cans. You know what I'm saying? Like, you left an impact
passed down
that other consciousnesses will resonate with.
And that's what I want to say, is the beauty of that is people don't need to understand what it does. There's an aspect of them internally that already gets it.
Yeah.
And that's why when you see when Jesus sits there and dies for everybody's sins, people don't go, what was the point of that? Inherently people have this feeling, this understanding that what he did was so significant, because again, he's just this peaceful, joyous person full of love. How do you dedicate your life to everybody except you and still have that much love to give, when nowadays you see everybody obsessed with themselves with no love to give to anyone? How can you not focus on yourself at all and only have love to give? There's a reason why we don't need to understand the story. Inherently, we just understand the science and the math of it.
Yeah.
Which is, if I focus on me, I don't care about you. But if I focus on you, I love me.
Yeah, it's action and reaction.
Exactly. There is an inherent understanding that surpasses the religion or the mythical. It's what this does is a real thing, and it is. Yeah. And that's why I always use the example of Martin Luther King. This was a guy obviously flawed, but even as a flawed person, what do we know him for? the only thing we all really know him for was he became big. He had his own church. He had his own stuff. How many people ever talk about his sermons or his church or what he taught or any of that stuff? The only thing anybody knows him for is saying, I had a dream that we could all get along, essentially. Yeah. That's basically all it is. I'm not sitting here telling you how you should be, and I'm not condemning us for how we are. I'm just saying that we should all get along.
Yeah.
And the inherent truth he was speaking was so powerful, and the way he said it was so powerful with such understanding that people were like, I know why I don't like black people, for example. However, the way he said that makes me question why I know I don't like him.
Yeah, my perception
why
of
don't
reality.
I like him? I don't actually have a reason. And then their reality shatters and they have to adopt a new one.
Yeah.
Why? What did he say that was so profound? It was simple communication and togetherness. The thing we're missing now, like we're saying, it's the other person that gives us value. And I would argue it's not even just that other person acknowledging our existence, but it's that other person, this deep-rooted understanding that God is in all of us. That deep-rooted understanding that whether we acknowledge it or not, there is something in us that says, I care for some reason about how you judge me.
Yeah.
There's something in you that I want to impress. That aspect is the only reason why I believe people do tighten up. Because when I see this other person and I want you to do better, it's not just I want you to acknowledge how great I am in me doing something and acknowledging my existence, as much as it is I want you to acknowledge that I'm doing right by myself. You know, what I do to help everybody else isn't to brag or glorify myself. It's to show that I'm doing this right.
I mean, it's the same way you feel shame for doing something wrong too.
Because you feel like you're doing life wrong. You're like,
Yeah.
I don't know what any of this is, but when I do something wrong, I feel like I'm losing the game. You know, if I have 1,000 lives, when I die, I don't go, yeah. I go, oh, I just took a hit. And that's the same idea as shame. Why do you feel like you took that hit? Why? If none of it matters and everything's, you know, we all exist in nihilism, a nihilistic vacuum, then why do we inherently care about the decisions we make? We never do if it's ourselves, but the moment we're around other people, suddenly we're conscious of what we do. And I believe that's a huge aspect of it, is the other person. And there is a togetherness in why we do what we do and what our overall goal is. I think deep down, as far as perception goes, we all know that we're trying to make somebody happy. We don't know who that somebody is. All we know is there's something in us we need to prove to ourselves and something in others we need to prove to them. And we don't know what it is we need to prove, but we spend our lives trying to prove it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the strongest proof in my mind for what is God, but that is also just that evolutionary aspect of perception. You know, seeing the world the way it is and the way it was given to you and just reacting, or understanding others have the same thing as you and how to overcome that. You know, when you overcome your perception, you realize it gets even bigger, and then you just feel even more inclined to help and spread,
connected to the
it's
the
like
universal fucking
as
soup.
you grow, you naturally want to help others grow. I mean, it's the way to like everything else.
Special thing, man. But well, we're about a little over an hour and a half here. We close it off, and you know, honestly, this topic's worth revisiting too, and in other aspects. It's vast. You know, we could get into the you know, conceptual thing of what it is to exist and see, but you know, it's more important for other people, you know, in the context of our modern reality, and and what perception does to yourself and to others. Because, I mean, yeah, if you really break it down, it's like, what do you want out of this life? What do you want to capture out of everything? Are you just kind of lost in a sea of everyone else's influence, or are you on your own? And if you are on your own, what are you going to feed into the human instinct, violent side of yourself, or are you going to rise above that and try to find a connection above your own existence? I mean, that's kind of what we're all facing now, is that we feel like
there's nothing we can do.
Yeah, like reality's been defined for us. Everything makes sense.
I can't hunt the boar and make the village happy. People will call me a murderer.
So yeah,
why you didn't need to do that? You can buy vegetarian. You're not a vegan?
Yeah.
You just kill that animal for no reason. You're like, I put my life on the line. They're like, we don't care. We won't eat that. And you're like, now I feel ashamed for what I've done. There is no accomplishments we can do anymore.
And I feel like instead of taking from the earth, so to speak, and being a part of it and being in harmony with that, you're trying to take from other conscious beings, and you're trying to rob them of their existence and their vitality. And that's kind of what we've built as a society now, is that we're all kind of lost in this sea of, it's almost like we believe that we're infinite, or we believe that
we're all imperfect, so it's
consequences.
okay.
Yeah,
we're all imperfect, so it's okay for us to not worry about consequences, because we all make mistakes, and consequences are a natural reaction of that.
Right.
Instead of saying, well, I saw this person do this, and I thought it was stupid, and I saw their consequences, and all I could think was, how severe are those consequences to something you could have avoided if you had only acknowledged how stupid you were? When it's hard not to change yourself when you see other people go through this. And I think that's one of the biggest problems is people, they don't watch how things happen through other people. They don't make those connections, and they go, well, that situation's different from mine. Yes, but there's so many similarities that you're missing because you're not analyzing your thoughts in your mind and how you react to everything. You're analyzing everything basis to basis, and you're like, well,
on the situation.
In this situation, it's similar to his, so why should I not knock the guy out? Because you don't understand that when he did it, he was at fault. Yeah, he won the fight, but he was at fault. He didn't win the war. And that's the problem. That's why nobody respects this person.
Yeah.
And you're going to copy that person because you don't understand what people don't like. Because overall, you don't know what you like.
I mean, that comes back to the Martin Luther King situation. It's like he was in the fight. He lost. He got killed.
He lost the fight, but won the war.
He won the war.
And that's
he didn't do it. It wasn't him. It was other people.
Yeah. And that's a great example. I mean, that's the problem with things nowadays is people, it's almost glorified to be selfish. It really is.
Yeah.
It's focus on you. Don't worry about anybody else. Focus on your truth. Fuck your truth. What does your truth have to do with anything in reality? If it's your truth, all that translates to me is this is how I see things, and how I see things should transcend everything. Regardless if I know I'm right or wrong, I want to understand everybody so that I don't step on toes. Not because I want to spend my life walking on eggshells, but because I want to make sure that, like you said, simply crushing that can makes a difference.
Yeah.
Enough for it to affect this conversation.
Yeah.
So clearly, if I only focus on me, what I'm putting out there is probably over time going to affect me more negatively than if I focus on other people. If I put other people first, and instead of crushing their can, I pour a little bit extra into it, that's going to change how that person perceives me. That's going to change how they talk about me. that all the word of mouth is going to come back and be like, this guy's awesome, versus I never hear anything about me. And why is that? Because nobody wants to say what they've been hearing about you. Because it'd be really awkward to meet somebody and be like, oh, you're the guy that nobody likes. No, you're going to be like, oh, I've heard about you. I've heard about you. It's not going to be like, oh, dude, you're the guy who blah, blah, blah and helped those people and did all this stuff. Dude, you're the reason. I'm so glad I met you. You're the reason I did this. And you're like, I've never even met you. And I'm the reason that you did something to help other people. That's the difference.
And it's the butterfly effect. I mean, even in the can scenario, say you crush it, it goes to the landfill. It becomes wedged in between, this and that or something like that. Maybe the guy moving it with the bobcat, the can, because of the way it's crushed, it gets fired out and then cuts the guy's leg. And like maybe he gets an infection or something. He dies and his family. It's like everything has a reaction to it. So like, it doesn't matter if the can's crushed or if it's in its state. The material universe will never be the same because of that conscious decision to crush the can or not. So, in a way, every decision that we are left with now and throughout eternity as conscious, sustained beings in this physical reality, that is going to influence the material universe from here on out. So everyone needs to take that idea seriously, and you need to understand it for yourself and for the greater society. Are you going to be the tender of your garden? Are you going to get rid of the weeds and all that? Are you going to be a positive influence on society and help humans progress based on all of the other superfluous things that we've come to know and experience? Most people aren't considering that. They're looking inward. They're being selfish. So we are all going to kind of separate and dissolve into chaos. And there's nothing that's going to bring us together other than something spiritual that doesn't seem to be flourishing now.
Yeah, and I guess for my closing thing, I'd say simply the greatest way to get around that is to focus on yourself. Focus on your thoughts, I mean. Focus on why you do what you do, why you react to things the way you react. If somebody says this to me and it hurts my feelings, I'm justified to feel this way. But how does my reaction, let's say you get in an argument with somebody, and then later you think, how did my reaction help the situation? I understand this person said this and I was justified to say that. But how did saying that help me?
Yeah.
And a lot of people, I feel like, don't do that. They only focus on what's justified and not repercussions. You can be justified to do something, but the repercussions don't pay out.
Yeah.
Somebody could kill your brother, and you lose your mind, you track him down, and you kill them. But deep down, you have this feeling like, maybe I don't know the full situation. Maybe I don't know what this person was going through. Maybe I don't know everything. Considering I wasn't part of it, maybe I don't know everything.
And then their brother kills you.
Or they don't, and you're just left living with the guilt of killing somebody, knowing it wasn't justified deep down, but only doing it out of the anger. And you reacted because you were justified to react, but now you have to live with something that is more painful than what caused the reaction. So it's like, yes, I didn't like this, so I reacted this way, but now I don't like this even more, and I can't shake this. The other one I can understand. I wasn't part of it. They put themselves in the situation. They did this. They got themselves killed. But it was my brother, and this guy killed my brother? You make it about you. You killed my brother? You took my brother away from me? I'm going to kill you. Then you kill them and you realize you're still alone. And now you've just murdered somebody. And you never really understood the full situation. You just heard word of mouth.
Yeah.
And now you have to live with something that you don't fully understand, but you have taken that situation you didn't understand, and you dealt with it before understanding it. And as a result, you'll never understand it. You'll never know what actually happened. You'll never know why the person did what they did. You took them out, and now you have to live with it. Again, obviously murder is a big one, but we can break it down to basic, simple anything. Any decision you make, an argument with a friend, where they say something you disagree and you just come back and kind of insult them, and you're like, well, this is why you don't understand this and that. You're just stupid. You break everything down into this simple formula because maybe you're not listening to how they're explaining. You're not seeing the bigger formula they're actually presenting. You've boiled it down to a simple thing, but you're not listening to them and seeing all the supporting facts that actually make what they're saying monumental.
Yeah.
You just boil it down to, you want my kids to play with your kids. Like, I don't know, no, fat chance. No, what he's saying is he wants us all to get along and love each other. Yeah. I mean, like the way I love my kids? Yeah, like he wants to love them in that aspect. But they're white. Doesn't matter. He loves your kids the same way you love them. Yeah. What you mean, like just overall human love? Yeah, we're talking about the conglomerate of love here, and then it's a narrow frame of mind versus vast, and you only get vast by analyzing your thoughts, watching how you react to things, and determining what is right and wrong based on not just your experiences of the decision of, well, this had bad consequences and this had good, but simply how does this affect other people and myself at the same time? So when I do this and I react this way, how do I feel about myself and how do I think I made them feel? Versus when I react this way, I just motivated myself and then 3 months later they came back and repaid it. Maybe not monetarily, but in value of conversation, which helped me. I pushed that person. 3 months later, they couldn't get over what I told them in my sharing. And then they became smarter. And they pushed themselves. And they were so hung up on this one conversation I had. Maybe I could look at myself as I have a million great ideas. And I gave this person one good one. But they because I'm a good person, they appreciated that. And they took that value and ran with it. And then when they ran all the way back around and they said, hey, I'm glad I ran into you. I was thinking about what you said about this. And what about that? And they give me another piece of that puzzle I never thought about. Because I didn't think about that conversation I gave them as much as they thought about it after I had it with them. And now they just added value into how I view everything just based on this one thing. You never know how it's going to come back around. And all you know is if you put yourself first, it'll never come back around. And if it does, it won't be good.
An eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. Anyway.
Cheers to that.
Cheers to that.
Bang,
guys,
bang, baby.
Thanks for watching.
Pow.
Join us next week, every Wednesday. Definitely, if you're a new subscriber, send an email of a screenshot of your subscription to parodyworldproductions@gmail.com. We will hook you up with a $5 Amazon gift card. And definitely feel free to join the chat and give us a call on the call line next show. Thanks for watching, guys. Meta Perspective Podcast.
Out.
Signing.
Meta Perspective Podcast.